Hello and welcome back to another video on my Fiat Panda 4x4 called Pedro. In this video I'm going to be talking about some really important updates I've recently done and also the prep work to get Pedro ready for its big adventure to Andorra. So first of all, in my last video, I fitted my custom 60mm lift kit to Pedro the Panda, and overall it has worked brilliantly, but there are some revisions I have made to the lift kit. First of all, once I uploaded the video onto YouTube, the company that make the lift springs called Realzi, they got in touch with me and said, Aaron, we may have made a mistake on your order. I ordered the 30mm lift springs and also their 30mm lift spacers. So in total, that gave me the 60mm lift kit. But then they said to me, I think we accidentally sent you the 40mm lift springs. Which means if that is the case, there is a chance that Pedro the Panda is not the world's first 60mm lifted Panda, but he could be the world's first 70mm lifted Panda. I can't confirm that 100%, but they're pretty sure they have sent me the wrong springs. If it's 60mm, that's great. If it's 70mm, that's even better. The next revision was the lower arms. So I had fitted poly bushes to the lower arms from a company called Godflex. And when I looked online, they were one of the cheapest options out there, but I thought they still looked pretty good. I fitted them. I wasn't too happy with how they fitted in the arms, but that became quite apparent when I started driving the car more. I was getting a lot of knocks from the lower arms. And also when I would come off a bump, so after a big dip in the road or a speed bump, the rebound caused the lower arms to wear through the poly bushes, and then essentially it was touching the subframe and it was like a metal on metal effect, and it just sounded absolutely awful. So I've had to remove them, and instead I have fitted 100 horsepower Panda lower arms, which have a slightly thicker metal insert. So effectively they're stiffer than an original or a standard Panda lower arm, but they're still rubber. They're a bit softer and more supple than the poly bushes, and now it is way better going over bumps. There's no knocks from them as well. So if you're going to fit the kit like I have done, make sure not to get the Godflex poly bushes because they're not that good. I can't comment on other companies like Powerflex or anything like that, but the ones I fitted I wasn't very happy with. I'm now happy with the standard 100 horsepower Panda arms, which I believe the make I got were Magneti Marelli, which is the same OEM maker that would have made them from factory. So I'm more happy with them. They seem to be doing a much better job, so that's well worth fitting. A few other things I had to do to complement the 60mm lift kit was the driver's side, or the right hand side engine mount that I'd fitted the lifting blocks to, which you can see in there. I was noticing a little bit of engine wobble, which I thought might have been my gearbox mount, which I'm getting onto later on. But it turns out it was actually because I fitted the lifting blocks, I had to slot in a little spacer that sits underneath the rubber itself, and that's because there was an air gap now because I'd fitted the spacer blocks, and that was allowing the rubber to move in and out slightly. So now that I fitted a 12mm spacer block underneath the engine mount, that's now cured that problem. While I was doing that, I also thought I would change the left-hand side engine mount, which I've now done, and I've also lifted that up by 12mm to match the right-hand one, and that has now cured that problem. I'm not sure if that's just because I fitted the spacers to the engine mount on the right-hand side, but also the left-hand side engine mount was completely shot, so that needed changing anyway. But I thought while I'm in there, I might as well space that up as well to match the driver's side. But now that's been done, that's cured that problem, and the car drives much smoother. So that pretty much concludes all of the revisions I've done to the lift kit I've fitted. But then I also recently had my MOT, which picked up on a few things. So items like inner track rod ends, my gearbox mount, and my prop shaft having free play. I've basically changed all of them. The prop shaft I rebuilt myself, but unfortunately when I put it back together I didn't mark the orientation of the two sections, and that's caused an imbalance. And because of my Andorra road trip so soon, I'm going in about a week's time, I didn't have time to get the prop shaft balanced, so I've bought a new one and I fitted that, and that now works perfectly. My other one I'm going to get balanced once I'm back, and then I'll have it as a spare unit. But then the gearbox mount, which sits underneath the car, that was completely shot, so I've changed that. The inner track rods, the outer track rod ends, they've all been changed. So now this car is completely roadworthy. So now on to some of the items I've done to prepare Pedro for his big road trip to Andorra. This will be the biggest road trip I've done in him so far. And this will be the first time I've driven into Europe with Pedro the Panda. It'll be me and 5 of my friends going, all in their own cars. So it's going to be a really good road trip. It will all be documented on YouTube and my Instagram. So it's well worth subscribing and following me on Instagram as well, because there'll be a lot of content from that road trip, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be great fun. But there's a few things I wanted to do to prepare for the road trip. First of all, I gave the car a full check over to make sure everything was okay. I know I recently had an MOT, but I thought I'd go a little bit deeper into that and just give it a thorough check over. I've also changed the differential oil, the gearbox oil, and the engine oil and oil filter. I was going to completely thoroughly clean the underneath of the car and wax oil it, but unfortunately I've run out of time, so I'll probably have to do that once I'm back, but that is well worth doing. I did though, while it was on the ramp, I did spot a few little areas of rust where it was just starting to scab, so I've cleaned them all down, rust treated them, and then painted some blue hammerite over it, which is quite a close colour match to my original paint colour, but that'll just stop it from getting any worse. And there's a chance we might be driving on a beach and the salt water would just eat into any areas that have exposed metal, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to get any worse. And I've also quickly made up a little fuel tank guard which will protect the fuel tank in case any rocks want to scrape against it. It hasn't really had many scrapes before, and I don't think it's going to be much of an issue, but I had some 3mm aluminium lying around, so I thought I'd quickly fold something up and mount it on the car just to be on the safe side, but that works quite well. I've also had all four wheel alignment done, so that's now running true, so I'm not going to scrub any of the tyres out. And then finally, normally before a big trip like this, I like to thoroughly clean the car because it kind of feels like a new beginning and it's a new adventure, and I like the car to be clean. A company on Instagram got in touch with me called Car Gods Detailing, and they came down and gave Pedro the Panda the full works, and they absolutely transformed the way he looked. He looks a little bit dirty now because that was done a few weeks ago, but I'm going to show some pictures and videos now of them doing the work, and they absolutely transformed the way he looked. Somehow they made it look like I have never been off-road with this car, because they removed 90% of the scratches, and I was amazed on how good and how clean Pedro looked after that. I wasn't even aware on how kind of strong the metallic flake was in the blue paint before that they came along and detailed it, but they did an amazing job. They did inside and outside and the engine bay, and I would highly recommend them, not just because they came down and did it to Pedro, but because they did an amazing job. I was absolutely blown away with what they did. So thanks very much to them guys for coming out and doing that. And they've also applied a coating on it which lasts for around a year. But before I go on the road trip, I'll give it one last clean off, which will just help any dirt sticking to it, which will then help me clean it in the future as well. But that is essentially it. So all of the work has now been done to Pedro. He is ready for his big adventure to Andorra. I highly recommend you guys subscribing on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram as well, because there's going to be some fantastic views, some fantastic off-road trails that we're doing as well. I've got the route completely planned out, and we'll be heading off in about a week's time, so stay tuned for that. My next video will be the loading up of Pedro, running through everything I've got, and the first day of the road trip. I'll be doing a video for every day of the road trip, so it'll be 7 parts because we're going for a whole week. Pedro's biggest road trip yet, so I'm really excited for it. But I thought I'd quickly do this video just for a little update on what I've recently done, because if you're looking to do that 60mm lift kit, there's some key little bits of information that I wanted to include and just kind of run through what I've been doing recently. So thank you very much for watching. Please comment your thoughts down below, like the video as well. Think about subscribing to me on YouTube and following me on Instagram, which is the Panda4x4, because I would really appreciate it. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon on my road trip to Andorra.